what's going on, guys? Before we get started today's video, just be sure to give a like and subscribe. I know it's been a while since I last uploaded, about a week or so, but you know, I'm here to give you guys a video here today, so let's get right into it. Let's get started with this tier list. So first off, we have Berserker. Now, due to the recent balance change that there was for this update, Berserker has found its way to, you know, be relevant in the meta right now, I would say. Now, I'm putting Berserker personally at high tier due to its versatility between AoE, speed, and just being able to move around the air so efficiently and so well. And on top of that, having crazy damage potential with its grabs and multi-hit moves. Stuff like boxing, thermo, iron leg, very good stuff here. Even basic combat's pretty viable if you want to run basic combat. Yeah, I would put Berserker at high tier after all its damage affinities were buffed for sure. Conjure. Conjure is not looking too crazy unless you play the same way a warrior does. Now, the reason why I'm saying this, Conjure, depending on your stat lineup, it could be borderline terrible or it could be really good. It really just depends on the magic you're using as well as the weapon type you're using. So I'm gonna have to put Conjure at mid tier. It can be high tier if you're playing very specific types of conjurers. Juggernaut. Now, not a lot of people know, but Juggernaut is actually pretty nasty, like nasty as fuck. You could go, I don't know, thermo jug or boxing jug, any type of Juggernaut really, and run a speed oriented combat with iron focus, right? Because you do end up getting your second potting style as a jug. You get a second potting style. So as long as you have iron leg focus and you're running a speed type, you know, damaging Juggernaut, you can have up to like 2k HP while still doing like crazy damage, right? I would put Juggernaut personally at high tier if you're efficient at getting your hits in, because you do have reduced damage for being bite build, but you can get up to 2k HP doing 200 damage as a Juggernaut. That's pretty fucking insane. Like, that's pretty good for a defense damage ratio. Very good. So I would put Juggernaut at high tier right below Berserker. Knight. Now, Knight is similar to Warrior. There is no reason to really play a Warrior when you could just go Knight and be more efficient, because first off, the awakenings are the same, but you get 400 extra HP if you're a Knight, right? 400 extra XP is very huge because you essentially get to save 2 hits on yourself, right? And then you can build some defense armor as well. A lot of the people are running like 400 to 600 defense with like meta power, which would be anywhere between 60 to 80 is what I've seen in most builds. So you can end up getting 2k HP or even like 1.8k, 1.9 while still doing pretty good damage, still having crazy nice attack speed because you get, you know, the warrior passives as well, and having pretty great AoE too. So I would put Knight at high tier, but if you're not good with weapons, I would put it at mid tier. So for that, I put it at mid tier for the average player. Now, if you're good, it would be a high tier class. Mage, there's no doubt without that Mage is a really good class. It's always been good. After all, this is Arcane Odyssey. Really good mages find themselves spamming the blast projectile because it is just a really good tool. It has no cooldown whatsoever. You could just spam Q, beam cycle with it, blast cycle with like explosions as well. Like, your snare is a really good option. Someone approaches you, really good for punishing. If you can play defensive mage where you just kind of like hold G, land a snare if they're coming close to you, very good stuff. You can snare into a place explosion. If you're a lightning mage, you can snare into your ultimate art place explosion, a proc a paralyze, land a beam afterwards, or a blast attack. It's just so good. And not many people are utilizing the entirety of Mage's kit. You know, some people are in the habit of just pulsar spamming, and that's really, really boring. Also, blast spamming, really, really boring. I want to see mages do more with their class instead of just spamming one projectile. That's for sure. But yeah, I would put Mage at high tier right above Berserker. If you're a really good Mage, you would not find too much trouble fighting Berserker. But if you are, I would put it below Berserker. But yeah, that's where I would rank that. Paladin. Now, the funny thing about Paladin, it's not like its other Vite counterparts, like Knight and Juggernaut, where you're kind of missing out on some vital tools as a mage when you go Paladin. So just for that reason, I would put it at mid tier, but if you're fine with just, you know, spamming projectiles and you're really good at doing that, Paladin can be high tier, but for the average player, I would definitely say mid tier. Probably below Knight. No, I would even say probably below Conjure and Knight. Savant. Now, Savant is the clown class. unfortunately. Everyone thinks Savant is like garbage for whatever reason. There's been Savants that I've fought in the past, mainly Inferno. That's the most notable one that you guys may know of. Savant is actually not a bad class at all to play as, but it is a little bit more complicated and you kind of have to tweak out the build, you know, a decent ways away to actually make it viable. But yeah, I would put Savant low mid tier or even low tier for the average player, but if you're really good at the game and you're good at, you know, finding out that specific kit that works for you, I would put it at a high tier. I'm gonna settle for mid tier, the low tier, so it's just gonna go all the way down to the bottom. Warden, unfortunately, Warden doesn't even fucking work, so there it goes for now. Warlock, without a doubt, everyone knows that Warlock is the meta right now. Undisputable. Warlock is the meta. You take two high tier classes and you put them together and you have all the best stuff that comes from magic, which is like status effects, size, imbues, stats, just mimicking the stat of the magic you need on the Phonic style to make it better than what it already was, right? Instead of being versatile, you're just upping your DPS count. You're also giving yourself like more advantages when it comes to people approaching you as well as you approaching them. Now, imagine if a mage were to like be able to have skills like crash and shot and rush down, all mobility moves. This is basically a mobility mage when you really think about it. This is a mage that wants to get in your face. Now, to me, this is insane because your DPS just pretty much skyrockets. Your damage potential is insane because, for example, if you were to land a grab as a Warlock, what's going to end up happening is you're going to get hit by a multi-hit attack. Chances are they're running an imbuement, and that imbuement is fast as fuck. So what's going to end up happening is you're going to grab, they're going to land their multi-hit, and they're going to do like 500 to 600 damage to you, unavoidable unless you parry in time. Now, sometimes the parry timings are scuffed due to ping, which, you know, can be a major factor in this, as well as some other stuff. That's why I'm going to put Warlock at top tier. There's just too many variables to make Warlock too fucking good. Plus, the fact that Berserkers got buffed makes it so that Warlocks do natural damage. So they do more damage naturally. It's just too good. So I'm gonna put it at top tier for sure. Warlock is definitely top tier. Warlord. Now, Warlord was good before this balance patch, but its main weapons, the Warlord weapons, are not too hot. You end up spamming kind of the same skills over and over again. They kind of they need to be fine-tuned for sure, but there are Warlord builds that take literally no skills. So for the average player, I would say Warlord is a high tier to top tier class pick. I would definitely put it up there with Mage, Berserker, and Juggernaut, or even Warlock, depending on the fighting style and weapons you are using. Because at the end of the day, it is just AoE spam, and AoE spam can get people really far if you're the average player, because block inputs are, you know, they're not very notable when it comes to regular fights. But when you do start to fight people that do learn their block inputs, you do end up, you know, having to struggle a little bit as a Warlord. So just for that, I put it at high tier, probably above Juggernaut for sure. Warrior is a weird one because there are 16 different weapons in the game, and as a Warrior, all in all, it's pretty mid to average, right? You can get by with using them. They're not completely terrible, but Warrior does find itself kind of lacking at some points unless you are running specific type of weapons, right? That being your Triasta, which is your TP moves. I made a video on this before, but your TP moves, your AoE moves, and your Clash Box moves, right? You want at least two or one of these moves in your kit. Reason being is you need to be able to clash with mages. You need to be able to space yourself from berserkers, as well as having decent to high damage output. Now, the thing is with Warrior is that if you're not running those weapons, you're not really good or meta, right? If you are running specific weapons, you are good at meta. Now, I would put Warrior at mid tier if you're using any other weapon. Like, for example, what if you're a throwing Warrior? If you're Axe, Poison Dagger, and Spear, that type of Warrior isn't going to get far as opposed to the Great Sword Warrior using Great Hammer, Devastate, and Crushing Judgment from the other hammer. Or Triasta, P-Dagger with Kai Saber. You just don't get enough value unless you're running certain types of weapons as a Warrior. Because for one, if you didn't know, for your Clash Box, the bigger the move is, the more clashing power you have, pretty much. So the bigger the AoE, the more clashing power. So if you are a Warrior and you're not running AoE, you're kind of defaulted into it. But if you're not running AoE as a Warrior, you don't get the full experience as a Warrior if you're trying to play for Clash Boxes. If you do run attack speed, you do help out a little bit, but the thing is, with Warriors, weapons, attack speed are kind of iffy. It's like a little bugged. Damage scaling for Warriors is kind of cooked as well. It's just weird. Warriors are just in a really weird spot because they can be good, but they can't be good at the same time. I would definitely put Warrior mid tier if you are just running any average Joe weapon that's not the meta weapons, but it can be a high tier and even on par with Warlord and Juggernaut, but it can be weaker than Knight at times, right? So honestly, I would have to put Warrior at probably above Juggernaut and below Warlord. That's what I would put Warrior. Now, this is my tier list for the meta builds for this month. I'll probably make another one of these when the balance patches roll through, if it is pretty major changes to the classes themselves. If not, then I'm not going to make one of these. Yeah, that's pretty much all for today's video. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe, and peace out.